All right, man, peace. So, brothers, retired former NBA legend Shaquille O'Neal recently has made the rounds by putting forth a sentiment that so many other retired former greats have put forth, especially in the last 3 years or so. That being that the team that they were on, particularly their championship team, would beat or would have beaten this current incarnation of the Golden State Warriors dynasty. I remember around 2016, it became in vogue for many former retired NBA greats like Walt Clyde Frazier, Isaiah Thomas, Charles Barkley, to talk about what they would have done or what their team would have done to the Golden State Warriors. Well, Shaquille O'Neal is no different, and this is not the first time that he's put forth this sentiment. Kobe Bryant has put forth a similar sentiment, that being that the 2001 Lakers that went 15-1 in the playoffs would defeat this current Golden State Warriors team. I've already done a video on that sentiment. I think that it's dependent upon what rules we're playing under and how focused each team is, because each team has their strengths and weaknesses. So Dikembe Mutombo sat down with Miss Rachel Nichols and he gave his own perspective, and it might surprise some people. So of course they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
I want to get to a little basketball also, because you commented, you hit the like button on Instagram yesterday, and we noticed your career overlapped with one of the great dynasties in NBA history, the Kobe Shaq Lakers.
Yes.
And this week, Shaq said that his peak Lakers team would defeat this current Warriors dynasty, quote, easily. He cited their 15-1 playoff run in 2001 as evidence.
Let me say this, and I've stated this already. The 2001 Lakers are one of the greatest playoff teams I've ever seen, by far. They were extremely dominant on both offense and defense. They have to be one of the top 5 teams I've ever seen, either on video or live. Amongst the teams that I've seen live, they may be the best playoff team that I've ever seen. They certainly had the most dominant run. Like literally, they were one Allen Iverson nuclear detonation in game 1 from having a perfect run in the playoffs. I mean, they were exceptional. Of course, we also have the 2017 Warriors that went 16-1. They were exceptional as well. And they lost that one game to LeBron James and Kyrie Irving. The Wonder Twins activated that game 4, and they were able to stave off a playoff sweep by the Golden State Warriors. So that team is also right there.
Steph Curry answered back saying, quote, dead wrong. And I saw a little like.
Now, you see Steph Curry, he's kind of trying to put his foot down more, because a couple of years ago, he would not have done that. He would never have said dead wrong. He would have just said, oh, well, you know, everybody has a right to their opinion. But right now, Steph is 30 going on 31, or however old he is. He's 3 championships deep, and he feels like he has the right to combat whatever sentiment Shaquille O'Neal puts out there. And good for him.
A like button on Instagram, so I want to know.
Oh, no.
Who you got? Who you got, my friend?
Oh, my God, you took a picture.
Yeah, Mutumbo funny as hell. Man, like the African Cookie Monster. You took a picture.
No doubt, no what? That is the photo, a screen grab I sent to our producers this morning. So please tell me, which side of this do you fall under?
I tell you what, I love this young Golden State kids. Golden State team. They're very different. And I think we, myself, Shaq and Kobe, we play a different type of game. Coaches here can testify on that.
Absolutely. Those late 90s, early 2000s teams, they played an extremely physical brand of basketball, an underrated physical brand of basketball. Once again, the most defensive era in the history of the NBA was from 1997 to about 2003, 2004. Quiet as kept. As much as people talk about the defense from the 70s and 80s, those were not defensive eras. The 1980s was not a defensive era. The most defensive era in the history of the NBA was from about 1997, 98, that area, to about 2003, 2004. And then you had the emergence of the Mike D'Antoni Phoenix Suns that kind of brought a bit of moderation back to the NBA, where they started to even out the offense and the defense.
This type of game these young boys are playing, I don't think we can match very well with them.
Now listen to that. Dikembe Mutombo stated that the type of game that these younger players are playing, this current generation of players are playing, that he feels like his generation could not match up with these players today. Now I'll say this, Dikembe Mutombo never won a ring, so he can't think like a champion. Shaquille O'Neal is always going to think like a champion. Kobe Bryant is going to think like a champion. So their attitude is we would have found a way. I think that the 0-1 Lakers versus the 2017 Warriors would have been an incredible matchup.
This way they call all the way too far right now. I think it would be very difficult for us to match it. Maybe at least if we have practice for a year,
right.
we might match up with them.
It depends on the rules. Under the style of play and the rules from 2001, I would, of course, shade the edge towards the 0-1 Lakers. Under today's rules, I would have to shade it slightly towards the Warriors. But both teams are very close.
I think Shaquille is just talking.
Well, he does that.
Of course, Shaq is just talking. Now, in regards to the 0-1 Lakers' strengths, their strengths, of course, would be their physicality. They had probably the most physically dominant player of all time in Shaquille O'Neal. Also, of course, they had the great Kobe Bryant in his prime, in his physical prime, back in 2001. But the weakness of that team was that they had a very low basketball IQ. Very low. And this is extremely underrated and underestimated because most people like to glamorize and glorify the past as opposed to viewing it in proper historical context. That first three-peat LA Laker team under Shaq played the weakest competition in the finals of any dynastic team ever in the history of the NBA, at least in the modern era. There's no doubt about it. They were very fortunate to face the Pacers, the Sixers, and the Nets. And their competition in the finals got weaker and weaker each consecutive year. Now, of course, in the Western Conference, they had to face the Sacramento Kings, or as they called them, the Sacramento Queens, and they had to face the San Antonio Spurs. But what most people are never willing to really acknowledge is that one of the main reasons why the Lakers were so successful against the Spurs in 01 and 02 was because the Spurs had a very terrible backcourt. They had a backcourt that was in flux and transition. They were changing over from the Avery Johnson, Steve Kerr era. They were changing over from the Avery Johnson era to the Tony Parker era. And you'll notice that in 2003, when Tony Parker was in his second year and they got Manu Ginobili, the Spurs were able to defeat the Lakers.
As Stan knows better than maybe anyone.
Absolutely, and I agree with what Dikembe's talking about in being able to cover the floor spread. But I'm telling you what, they got no way to guard Shaq down on the low post either.
I completely agree. But the question is, would Kobe Bryant have been willing to take advantage of that matchup? Because as we all know, and as he has admitted openly, he is the reason why they lost the 2004 finals to the Detroit Pistons, because he refused to give Shaquille O'Neal the basketball when he was supposed to. Kobe Bryant himself has acknowledged this fact. So once again, that team, the early 2000s LA Lakers, had a very, very low basketball IQ. And everybody who understands what they were watching knows that. They could have been taken advantage of. And just about every smart team that they played, as long as they had decent talent, was able to defeat the LA Lakers because they could take advantage of Kobe Bryant's pride and his ego and his hubris. Kobe, of course, as we all know, is extremely intelligent. But your intelligence is only relevant when you're willing to use it. And oftentimes he was not willing to use it. As I've stated many times, he did not truly become a well-rounded overall basketball player until the 2007-2008 season. Just my view of it. Now, in regards to the Golden State Warriors, we all know what their strengths are. Their strengths are their great team speed, their understanding of how to utilize their offense against almost any defense, their exemplary shooting. Now, what are some of their flaws? We know that sometimes they can be pushed around a little bit. They can be moved a little bit when it comes to their mentality. They can be intimidated to a certain degree. So that's something that the 0-1 Lakers would have been able to take advantage of because they were a very, very physical team.
And he was a great passer. You put shooting around him and you're trying to double team, you're going to have a hard time there too. It would be a contrast in styles.
Right.
I think we'd probably have games about 150 to 145.
Nah, I doubt it. I doubt if the scores would have been that high.
Because nobody could stop anybody.
Right.
But I think it would be a hell of a battle.
Yeah, my thing is this.
But they got DeMarcus Cousins in there in the lineup. I love that.
I guarantee you that Kobe would most likely have tried to switch off on Steph, and they would have had D. Fish guard Klay Thompson. Because unless Klay Thompson gets hot, he pretty much is somebody who tends to fade into the background. Klay Thompson ends the season averaging about 20 points a game, and it's basically because he has about 10 games out the season where he goes nuclear, and the rest of the games out of the season he averages about 12 to 15 points a game. But he'll have about 10 to 12 games where he goes completely nuclear, and he'll have one game where he goes thermonuclear. He just scores 65 points to 3/4. But he normally has very uneven offensive performances throughout the season, and then when they're averaged out, they average out to about 20 points a game on about 48% shooting from the field.
But we already saw what happens when someone comes in with a game plan that Shaq is going to be Shaq, and we can't do anything about it. Detroit did that. They let Ben Wallace do single coverage. He destroyed Ben Wallace, but guess what? They suffocated everybody else.
Right, but Amino Hassan, and I normally like the things that you say about basketball. The 2004 Detroit Pistons are arguably the greatest defensive team in the history of the NBA. They had Ben and Rasheed Wallace. They had Tayshaun Prince. Those are three of probably the top 50 NBA defenders of the modern era, going back to 1979. Ben Wallace is a guy who won, 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards? So it's very difficult. I like Draymond, but we can't really compare Draymond to Ben Wallace. Beyond that, one of the reasons why that series did not go longer and therefore put more pressure on Detroit was because, once again, Kobe Bryant was playing me ball. He was horrific. And nobody talks about that series as much as they should. We talk about the LeBron James performance in 2011, which is definitely the worst performance by any superstar in the history of the NBA Finals, no doubt about it. But that 04 performance by Kobe Bryant, for somebody who had already won 3 championships, is up there. Is in that same room.
And what Golden State has is maybe not as elite a defender as Ben Wallace was, but Draymond Green's pretty good. And then,
bruh, you put Draymond Green on Shaquille O'Neal, that's not even barbecue chicken. That's a barbecue buffet.
On the perimeter, how many 6'7", 6'8" guys who switch everything, who are high IQ players and excellent defenders? Yeah, we're going to swarm the hell out of Kobe on the perimeter. And then the big thing is, Derek Fisher can't put any pressure on Steph Curry. So there's no way for the Lakers to take advantage of Steph Curry as a quote-unquote weekend. I don't know. I don't think it would be close at all.
I think it would be, because I know we're...
Of course it would be close. I mean, that's just silly. It wouldn't be close at all. But you know why Amino Hassan is saying that? Because he's a huge fan of the Golden State Warriors system. And I understand that. Because the Golden State Warriors system is basically an amalgamation of what Mike D'Antoni was doing in Phoenix, what Phil Jackson was doing in Chicago and LA, and what Greg Popovich was doing with San Antonio. Because remember, Steve Kerr was privy to all 3 of those systems. He was the GM in Phoenix when D'Antoni was there, and he played under Phil Jackson and Popovich. So I understand why Amin is saying that, but that 0-1 Laker team, they were very special.
Saying Draymond Green's a good defender. Draymond Green's not guarding Shaquille. He's not.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Van Gundy.
He's not. Wallace can at least make it competitive. I mean, Draymond Green.
Plus, there's a big difference between the 04 Lakers and the 01 Lakers. That 3-year gap was a major difference. Shaq in 2000, 2001 is arguably the most dominant force in the history of the modern NBA. Now, in 04, he started to show a little bit of wear and tear on his tires.
Or are we going to put Kevon Looney out there?
Thank you, sir. Kevon Looney is a D-League player. Kevon Looney is not an NBA basketball player. I'm sorry. I watch him in the Golden State Warriors games. He is horrific. All that guy is height. He has no coordination whatsoever.
Are we leaving Cousin out on this game, on this lineup?
Well, he was in the lineup. He was in the lineup.
But if he's in the lineup, we have some problem.
Right.
Yeah, he's a major factor. He might be the X factor. If DeMarcus Cousins plays, then you have somebody who can kind of, sort of, in a certain way, start to nullify Shaq in his prime. I mean, if D. Cousins can stretch the floor, bring Shaq out, maybe tire him out, he would have a major effect.
Right.
You know what's so funny? Coming into this season, everybody thought that DeMarcus Cousins was just going to be icing on the cake. No, he's going to be a part of the cake because the NBA has caught up to Golden State. Toronto has caught up to them, and I think that Boston is going to show when they match up with Golden State that they've caught up to them as well. I still think, of course, that Golden State is the best team in the NBA, but it's not going to be easy.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And Shaq would go out there and come back with him.
Shaq never goes out.
Right? Absolutely.
No, Shaq can go out. He just won't come back. He'll be too damn tired.
Shaq's not going out.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. I do like a lot of these hypothetical matchups because It allows us to revisit the past and assess some of the greats of yesteryear and compare them to today. It is what it is. So peace.